Yes, Lieutenant Commander Kevin Doremus joins us now. Good morning, Lieutenant. Thank you so much for being with us. Now, we have to ask you, we know that 2021 was an extremely busy season for the hurricane hunters, but which storm would you say was the craziest to fly through this year?
It's really interesting listening to your recap. The storm that was the most memorable for me is actually a storm that many people probably didn't even hear about, and it was Hurricane Sam.
I knew it, yeah.
And the reason it was a memorable storm, it was towards the end of the season. It was extremely powerful, and it was extremely powerful for a very long amount of time. The reason most people didn't hear about it is it was what we like to call a fish storm. It's a storm that stayed offshore, which is the storms that we really, really want. We want them to stay away from landfall. But this was an incredibly valuable opportunity for our scientists to not just do reconnaissance on the storm, but also to do some incredibly valuable research that helps us improve the hurricane forecast for years to come.
And Lieutenant Commander, I appreciate you mentioning Hurricane Sam because one of the strongest storm that we have seen thus far this year, one of those classic storms that forms in the main development region just off the coast of Africa. I am curious to know, as you guys do fly into these storms, and you have what clocked some 3,000 miles, so you know a thing or two about these flights. So educate us. What altitude do you guys fly at? Does it depend on the strength of the storm?
Yeah, so there are tropical storms and what we call low-level inves flights. So flights into storms that have not quite developed will go as low as 1,000 to 1,500 feet. A typical hurricane mission has us anywhere between 8 and 10,000 feet. And that gives us a pretty comfortable margin of error distance from the ground. And it also keeps us at an altitude where the aircraft is in as safe a position as it can be. Specifically keeps us out of what many people don't think about, but it's actually ice inside the storm. As you climb up in altitude, the temperatures get cooler, and there's obviously a lot of precipitation in the storm. As you go higher, if you get a little bit higher, usually around 12,000 feet, you can start to get ice and grapple on the aircraft, and that can cause damage. So that 8 to 10,000 feet is kind of the sweet spot where we can get the best information possible, but also do it safely.
Hurricanes, they're warm core lows, but still, as Lieutenant Commander Doremus mentions, they can still form that frozen stuff.
Exactly. Well, speaking of collecting data, what kind of data is collected during the hurricanes hunters when you guys are flying through these storms?
So there is a lot of information coming off that airplane as we're flying through the storm. You basically think of it as a mobile flying weather lab. We have multiple different tools. We have what we call the SMRF, or Step Frequency Microwave Radiometer. That's one of the most important pieces of equipment that we have on the airplane that can actually sense wind speed at the surface. And that's really important for the forecasting effort and for issuing warnings and things like that. We also utilize what we like to call drop sons. They're small little cardboard tubes that will launch out of the airplane. You can think of it as a weather balloon in reverse. So it launches out of the airplane, it's got a little parachute. As it falls through all the different layers of the storm, from the aircraft altitude all the way down to the surface, it sends back temperature, pressure, humidity, dew point, and GPS-derived wind speed. We'll launch those in all different quadrants of the storm to get a really big picture of what is currently happening in the storm. And we also have three radars on the aircraft. We have one on the nose. We primarily use for navigating through the storm. We have a lower fuselage radar that scans 360 degrees around the aircraft. And one of our most valuable and unique tools that we have on the aircraft is a Doppler radar, which is located in the tail of the airplane, and that scans vertically. And that's a very, very important tool that the forecasters use in the intensity forecasting part of our mission.